Hey guys, it's Marta. Today I wanted to show you how I take care of my hydrangeas. It's time for pruning. It's the beginning of March and I'm pruning my Annabelles and my hydrangeas PANICULATA, so Limelight, Vanilla Fraise. I wanted to show you how. This is Hydrangea Annabelle. I think one of the easiest to grow. I grow them in semi-shade and I think it's the best place for them. What is important is that they have a lot of water and not too much sun, because when I grow them in full sun, they have a tendency to have brown edges on their petals, so I think semi-shade is the best. Here I have Hydrangea Annabelle, but also in the garden you can find strong Annabelle, so incredible. They have a tendency to a bit stronger stems, so they hold their flowers more strongly, but both of them have a tendency to flop. So I'm using special supports to make them stand upright, because when we have a lot of rain and a lot of wind, they have a tendency to flop. I prune my Annabelles in spring, usually late February, early March is fine. You can also do that in autumn, but I like to leave them for the winter because they give special interest in my borders. And pruning is super easy. I usually cut them back hard. I prune them just few centimeters above ground and they bloom beautifully. We live in a zone 6B, so that means that in winter we get freezing temperatures like -15, sometimes -20. We even had -25, but the last few winters were pretty mild for us because we had -15 degrees Celsius, which is for us really nice. I know that not a lot of people would say that it's a mild winter, but Annabelles are, even if we cut them in February and we get a lot of frost, we get frost until the 15th of May, it doesn't bother them, so we can really cut them early. The first thing I will do, I will remove the supports and it will make it easier to cut, and then I will show you how I do it. The first thing I do with all of my pruning, I'm always using the 3D rule. That means that I'm removing all the dead, diseased and damaged stems. With all of my hydrangeas, I'm always looking for some spindly growth, that it's weak, that it's really thin. It will not hold flowers, so I'm cutting that back to the ground and I'm only leaving the strong stems. And I'm always using the rule of the pencil, so I'm trying to leave only the stems that are pencil thick. So when I'm pruning, I'm always cutting above the nodes, like half a centimeter above a node. And with Annabelles, I'm usually pruning at around 20 to 40 centimeters from measuring from the ground. And it doesn't really matter because I tried both ways, cutting them really hard and cutting them a bit higher, and they bloomed just the same. So usually it's like this high or this high, and it's enough. Even if you will go with your scissors or secateurs and you will cut them just above the ground, they will bloom just the same. Okay, Annabelles are done. In March I'll be fertilizing them. Then I'm doing a lot of mulch. I'm using compost, so I'm just making the beautiful blanket of compost on all of my borders. In spring I really want to look at my tulips because we'll have hundreds of them here. So the supports go in at the end of May when the tulips stop blooming, and usually hydrangeas are big enough so the supports disappear quite quickly. Okay, I will clean this later. Now let's prune some hydrangeas paniculatas. In this part of the garden I have some new hydrangea paniculatas, mainly Limelight but also Polar Bear. I put them in the ground just last spring. They were bare root and they bloomed like crazy. We also have some limelights that are like 7-8 years old, and I will show you one later. But these are young plants and I will show you how I prune them. So hydrangea paniculatas are the hydrangeas that are cone-shaped. They are, I think, the easiest ones to grow, and they will forgive you a lot. They are great grown in a sunny position, in semi-shade, maybe not in deep shade, but they will bloom in both places beautifully. They are also most resistant to lack of water. I wouldn't say drought, but if you leave them without water for several days, they will do just fine. Annabelles, if they don't have water for a week and it's really hot, they will flop. The flowers will be like fainting, but paniculatas are really strong. So if you are not sure which hydrangea to choose for the first hydrangea you have in the garden, paniculatas are the ones to choose. You can prune those, I think, even 3 ways. The easiest one is pruning them really hard, and a lot of people do that. So they prune them similar to Annabelles, very close to the ground. They will get very strong stems with big flowers, but you will have fewer stems with flowers. Then, if they are young, I'm usually pruning them pretty hard, but still I will need some branching. I need some strong stems and like a skeleton that will hold the flowers, and this is my favorite way of pruning. And then if you have older shrubs like the limelights that are the biggest ones, and I have them at the back of the border, then I will prune them higher, because I want the flowers to be the back of the border. I have something in front of them like Annabelles, then I will prune them higher. So these limelights are really young. They were just put in this place last spring. So I'm looking for strong stems, pencil-like. These would be perfect, but some of them will be a bit thinner. So I look at the stems. If they are really spindly, really thin, I will cut this stem harder. If they are like these ones, so similar to a pencil, I will cut them a bit higher. So this for me is a spindly growth, and I will cut this one hard, but if it's thicker, I will just cut above a node. So after the first or second node, I will cut like ½ centimeter above and just prune it like that. So this is an example of a strong stem, and I will be cutting above the first or second node. Here I will cut above the second one, and here I will cut above also a second one. Here is another strong stem, but without branching, so I will cut just similar to this one. So we'll have a nice round shape of the shrub. Here the same here, and here we have some branching. I'll be cutting just above the first node, and also here above the first node, and here we'll have maybe even 4, even more flowers, so that's great. If I have stems like that, so you can see that the flower wasn't fully developed, I will cut it harder, because I think it will make a better flower this year. Okay, this is a nice skeleton, and I think it will have a lot of flowers. Let's go with another one. I was really surprised when I put them in the ground, and they gave such an amazing show with their flowers. The first year they were put in, even with bare root, really amazing. I was really amazed. They bloomed really early, because they bloomed even in July. Usually limelights start blooming in our garden in August, so these ones were really a really nice surprise. So again, I'm pruning after the first or second node. Okay, I have one big vanilla fraise near my greenhouse. So I've left this hydrangea to show you. This one is older. It's, I think, 7 years old. It is really beautiful with big flowers. It's vanilla fraise, so it's at the beginning it's very, very white, then it gets like a pink blush, and then it goes really deep pink in autumn. I absolutely love it. I've put some new ones next to it because it gives amazing autumn interest, and I really need more flowers like that, because when I started my garden and I started rebuilding it and making it more of an English garden, I was so focused on spring flowers and interest in May, in June and July. So we have a lot of roses, a lot of perennials, but then in autumn I was like, we need something more. So hydrangeas are really good for that, and phlox. So we have hydrangea and phlox here, so in autumn it looks really, really great. So this one, it's bigger, and I will cut it higher because I really need those flowers to be above all of those perennials. Here we have a beautiful rose and beautiful clematis, so the flowers need to be really high to make an impact. With hydrangeas that I have at the back of the border, and I need the flowers to be really high, I'm really looking for a very strong framework of stems that will be able to hold the flowers. As you can see, those flowers, we had like super heavy snow that was on all of the flowers, so that's maybe you've seen on those limelights that some of the flowers were like really bent because of the snow. We had like a huge amount of snow, and it was pushing them towards the ground. But here I really need the strong like a skeleton. So I'm looking for all of the branches that are pencil thick, and I will be cutting back, but again a bit higher than last year, because I really want this to be big. Some of the stems I will prune harder, but overall I'm trying to give this shrub a round shape so it looks nice. I will start from this part, and then I will go around. Sometimes when I'm pruning, I'm just trying to just take a few steps back, look at the shrub and the overall shape of it. So it's always better when you're very close to the shrub. Sometimes you don't see how it should look like. So this year I think I will be cutting above the third node. Let's make it a bit higher. But if a stem is thinner like this one, I will cut above the first one. If it's really thin, I will cut it back to the framework. So here is some spindly growth. I will cut it back to the framework. And here the stem is a bit thinner, so after the first node, this one is a bit stronger, but I want to keep the shape, so also after the first node, and here after the first node. Okay, so here strong stems I cut after the third node, also here after the third node. Here is something very spindly, again I cut it back hard. This one is thin, so after the first node. This one is strong after the third node. Okay, here I want to have this round shape, so I will cut here, here. This is something very spindly, out. Here is a thinner stem, I will cut above the first node. So here is after the third node, the third node, the third node, the third node, also the third node. I also have two very, very spindly ones, so I will cut back hard. So this is how it looks like after pruning. Now we only wait for the leaves to come out. Of course, the same. I will be fertilizing in March, and then I will be doing all of the mulch with compost, and I will be mulching like 2 to 3 centimeters of mulch, and we are using just compost, and it's enough, and they are very, very happy with that. Boy, it's really cold. So the only hydrangeas I don't prune now are the microphylas, because they are very sensitive to frost, so I usually keep them all tied up with a rope, and then if we have freezing temperatures at night, I usually cover them with fleece or with old jackets. This is my idea for how to protect them from the frost, because I absolutely love their flowers. And the other hydrangea I don't prune at all during this time of the year is the climbing hydrangea. I just clean the flowers and that's all. If I want to prune something, I usually prune them after they have flowered, so usually that is in late spring. I really need to go home and grab some hot tea. Okay, I really hope this was useful for you, this my pruning routine of my hydrangeas. If so, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing.